The Secret Box by Whitaker Ringwald. Chapter 16. Ethan. Fact. Sidekicks were invented so the superhero had a loyal assistant. Sherlock Holmes had Dr. Watson. The Lone Ranger had Tonto. Frodo had Samwise. The sidekick is supposed to perform functions that the hero can't perform. Dr. Watson helped solve crimes. Tonto helped bring justice to the Wild West, and Samwise killed a giant spider and became a ring bearer. What did I do? I looked things up on the phone. Did you get the directions? Jax asked. Yeah. I hadn't realized it before, but Tyler and Jax had one big thing in common. They were stubborn. When they wanted something, there was no giving in. Jack sat in the front seat humming along to the battle march of the orcs or trolls or whatever mythological monster inhabited the soundtrack. Tyler thumped his hand on the steering wheel. They were a team. I would have never imagined Jax and Tyler working together. Until today, she couldn't stand him. And now they were like Bonnie and Clyde, those gangsters who robbed banks. Jax and Tyler united on their quest for the box. What they didn't seem to understand was that not everything had to be a conquest of some sort. Or maybe that's where I was wrong. Maybe that's why Tyler had shelves of trophies and I didn't. I checked the time. Mom would be calling soon. What would they tell her? Hey, Ethan, can you read that article? Jax asked. What article? The one you found online. The one about the camels getting into some kind of trouble. She turned off the music. I found the article and read it out loud. Archaeologists wanted for fraud. The International Society of Archaeologists released an official statement today. Two of its members, George and Martha Camel, owners of Camel Auction House in London, have been ejected from the respected institution after evidence of forgery and fraud surfaced. The society collected proof that the pair advertised and sold ancient artifacts, most of which were fake. Attention was drawn to the auction house when the Camels announced that they were in possession of the famous Pandora's box. An auction for the box was held privately, with an unnamed source paying an undisclosed amount of money. The box was not delivered to the buyer, and the Camels have since disappeared. Pandora's box, Jack said. Hey Tyler, have you mentioned that earlier. What is it? It's a box that contains evil, he said. Walker and I have been working on a design for Pandora's box in Cyclopsville. Once you get into the temple and pry open the vault, you take Pandora's box to the Cyclops King, and he rewards you with entrance to the next level. But if you open it before giving it to the Cyclops King, then your head explodes and the rest of your body bursts into flames. It's awesome. So, if you put it into your game, does that mean it's a Greek myth? She asked. Yeah, it's a Greek myth, he snorted. Once again, the public education system has failed to enlighten the masses. Unbelievable. I've heard of Pandora's box, but I didn't know the story either. Tyler, could you give us a break from the insults and just tell us what you're talking about? But first, take a right at this intersection. I'd switched back to Google Maps. Right! Go right! The wheels squealed as Tyler made a sharp turn. The plastic wrap window was holding nicely in place. Why is it called Pandora's box? Jax asked. According to Greek mythology, Pandora was the first woman on Earth. You mean like Eve? Jax asked. Yeah, just like Eve. Pandora was the Greek Eve. Before she arrived, there were only men on Earth. Zeus, the leader of the gods, was mad at men for some reason I can't remember. I almost snorted. Tyler had just admitted to not knowing something. That was like a mini miracle. Anyway, Zeus was angry with men, so he invented women as revenge. That's not very nice, Jack snapped. Don't get cranky with me. I didn't write this story. Tyler scratched his armpit. Because Pandora was the first woman and it was her birthday, the gods gave her all sorts of gifts like speech and beauty and clothing. Zeus gave her a box, but he told her she wasn't supposed to open it. Jack sat up real straight. Pandora got a box for her birthday, just like me? That's right, Sherlock, a box. Unfortunately, one of the other gifts was curiosity, so of course, being curious, she opened the box. Turns out it contained evil. Take a left, I said, checking the directions. Left! Left! Tires screeched again. What kind of evil? Jax asked. What do you mean, what kind of evil? Evil is evil. It's the opposite of good. Tyler turned the wheel. The point is, when Pandora opened the box, evil escaped and was spread throughout the world. And that's why humanity is such a mess all the time. That's why we're doomed. Jack scowled. That's stupid. Why are women always to blame in these old stories? Eve ate the apple and mankind was doomed with sin. Pandora opened the box and mankind was doomed with evil. It's totally unfair. She had a point. Speaking of apples, give me one, will ya? Tyler held out his hand. I took 3 apples out of the fruit stand bag and we all munched. I don't understand something, I said. Pandora's box is a story, but the camels claimed that they had it and they put it up for auction, and someone tried to buy it. Why would someone buy a box that doesn't exist? A good con artist can talk anyone into buying anything, Tyler said. I scooted low in my seat. Great. Not only were the camels thieves who'd ransacked a house and broken our car window, but they were also con artists. This was getting better by the minute. You don't think? Jax turned and stared at me over the seat. What if it's not just a story? What if the box Juniper sent me is Pandora's box? Tyler tapped his fingers on the steering wheel. Not likely. They didn't have GPS technology in ancient Greece. That box is 21st century design. Yeah, I guess you're right. She turned back around. I'm glad it's not a box full of evil. That would be a total drag. Unless you wanted to take over the world. I sighed. They were both mental. 10 minutes later, we reached our destination. This place was the exact opposite of New Hope. No craft shops, no art galleries, or overflowing flower pots. The road was lined with fast food joints, gas stations, and a couple of motels, the kind that offered weekly and monthly room rentals. Google Maps led us to one of these motels, 2 stories tall, brick with powder blue trim on the windows. The sign advertised kitchenettes and microwave ovens in every room. A row of garbage cans cluttered the sidewalk. It looked like someone had driven a truck into the side of each one. An old broken television lay next to the cans, along with a broken broom and a battered motorcycle helmet. What a dump, Tyler said. Look for their car, Jack said. We drove around the building twice, but didn't see a black Jaguar, which made me feel a bit better. As much as I wanted Jax to have her birthday present, it would be nice to avoid a big scene. Tyler passed 2 perfectly good parallel parking spots, claiming he was surveying the terrain. Then he parked at the far side of the building. What's the plan? I said before we got out. To get the box, Jack said. Great, I mumbled. No plan. A couple of kids were swinging on a rusty swing set at the edge of the parking lot. A woman sat on a bench nearby reading a magazine. The day was warm, so many of the motel windows were open, with music and television soundtracks leaking out. Wet laundry lay on windowsills to dry. This was no vacation spot. People were living here, people who were down and out of their luck. Room 2C, Tyler said, as he read the sticky note he'd taken from Juniper's office. The Sunny Days Motel was designed so that all the doors faced the road. Jax took the lead, marching up the steps with determination. We walked along the balcony until we came to room 2C. Traffic whizzed by, which made me feel a bit better. The camels wouldn't try to hurt us, not with so many witnesses around. I reminded myself that they were old people, and that we could easily overpower them. Jax was good at wrestling, and Tyler was 6 feet too. I felt around in my pocket until my fingers rested on the Swiss Army knife, just in case. The door had a peephole. Jax covered it with her hand. Down the balcony, a TV blared, pots and pans clinked. It smelled like someone was making grilled cheese. My stomach growled super loud. Both Tyler and Jax shot me a glare. I glared right back. How was I supposed to keep my stomach from growling? I hadn't eaten anything all day except those mini donuts, the pizza flavored chips, and a couple of apples. Jax pressed her ear to the door. Then she knocked, and knocked again. They're not here, I said with relief. Let's go. Looks like a dead end, Tyler whispered. There's no such thing as a dead end, Jack said, knocking louder and louder. Actually, there is, Tyler corrected. We built one in Cyclopsville. This is not a dead end, she insisted, grabbing the knob and wiggling it. She wiggled it again and again, then pushed her shoulder against the door. What are you doing? I asked, looking around to make sure we hadn't drawn attention. It's locked, Jax. Stop it. But she didn't stop. With a grunt, she pushed harder and harder, her face turning red. Then she grabbed the knob with both hands. The box inside is inside this room, she said, her teeth clenched. I know it's in there. Strands of hair fell out of her ponytail and dangled in her eyes. Her knuckles turned white. She's going berserk, Tyler said in a matter-of-fact way. She was. She was about to throw her entire body against the door, but I squeezed in front of her. Jax, I said, my voice low and calm, as if talking to a rabid dog. Why would the box be inside if the camels aren't there? She took a long breath, then unclenched her hands. I have a feeling, and I've never had a feeling like this before. A feeling? Tyler asked. It's in there, trust me. She undid her ponytail and remade it tighter and neater. Oh no, she wasn't giving up. I'm getting my box. Wait a minute. I kept my voice low. Maybe we didn't technically break into Juniper's house because the door was unlocked and we're family, but there's no way we can go into the Camel's motel room unless we're invited. Otherwise, it's definitely trespassing. She ignored me, which is what she did when I didn't agree with her, and she marched back down the stairs and over to the woman who sat reading the magazine. Tyler and I followed, except I stood back a ways, watching. It always amazed me that Jax could walk up to anyone and start talking. Excuse me, she said. The woman looked up, her lip curled. Jax had interrupted her reading. I'm looking for my grandparents. He's bald and walks with a cane, and she's really tall and has silver hair. I don't know him, the woman said. She turned the page. It was one of those magazines that was all about celebrities. The movie star on the cover had been labeled the worst dressed. Is there an office manager or someone who might have an extra key to my grandparents' room? Jax asked. Manager's only here in the morning, then he goes and gets drunk. He won't be no help to you. She turned and hollered at her kid. Max, stop throwing sand on your brother. A couple of teens, dressed in ripped jeans and high tops, walked past. With Jax in the lead, we followed them into the motel laundry room. An old tan dryer bounced from side to side, overloaded. Cigarette butts had been swept into the corner. Junk mail was piled on a counter, next to empty boxes of Tide. Hey, Jack said. I'm looking for my grandparents. She described them. The girl wore a gold chain that connected her nose piercing to her ear piercing. When she shook her head, the chain swayed. I wondered about the intelligence behind attaching two parts of your face that weren't supposed to be attached. If she got that chain caught on something, she'd rip an earlobe and a nostril. What's your problem? She asked me with a sneer. What are you staring at? Uh, nothing, I murmured, stepping back. Maybe you'll. Oh, maybe you'll remember their car, Tyler said. They drive a black Jag. The guy who'd been texting quickly glanced at Tyler. Yeah, I know that car. I helped the old man carry in some suitcases. When? I don't know, a few days ago. He kept texting me. They paid me $100 cash. $100 to carry suitcases? Tyler whistled. That's good money. If they can pay that, then they can pay for my car window for sure. We came to see them, but they're not here, and the office manager isn't here either, Jax told the guy. Do you know if there's anyone else who might have an extra key? He texted something, then said, We always climb in through the windows when we lock ourselves out. They open super easy. Just slide a knife under the frame. Everyone does it. There's a ladder out back. Really? Thanks, Jax said. Then she started around the building without a word. Shouldn't breaking into a motel be a group decision? Whatever happened to democracy? We're going to end up in the back of a police car, I grumbled. An alley ran between the motel and some sort of warehouse. There were no doors back there, but each of the rooms had two windows that offered a boring view of the warehouse's cement wall. Jax counted along the second floor, then pointed. That's what you see. Curtains were drawn, the windows closed tight. A ladder lay on the ground. We're not really going to do this, I said, but Jax had already grabbed it. A memory flashed across my mind. When we were little, Jack spotted a bird nest in the tree outside her bedroom. She waited weeks for the baby birds to leave the nest. Then she tried to climb the ladder. When that or tried to climb the tree. When that didn't work, she got a ladder. When that didn't work, she got a table. I was opposed to setting the ladder on the table, but she talked me into it. A minute later, she was lying on the grass, cradling a broken elbow. The paramedics were nice. One of them climbed the ladder and scooped the nest right up, but we both got grounded. Watching her grab that ladder, I got the same feeling of foreboding as when we were little. Jax, I don't think it'll be okay. Famous last words. Two boys zipped into the alley on their bikes. As they rode past, Tyler and I froze, unsure what to do. But Jack smiled and waved. We forgot our key, she told them. They didn't seem to care, just kept riding up and down. If you act like you're not doing anything wrong, most people won't question you, Jack said. Just look confident. I've heard that piece of wisdom countless times. Turned out it was true. If you sit in the reserved section at the Chatham Playhouse and you act as if you belonged in the reserved section, no one asks any questions, but it still didn't feel right. Sometimes it felt like I was witnessing my life, watching myself from afar. There I was, up to my eyeballs in a Jack's situation. As Tyler helped her lean the ladder against the wall, a woman on the first floor peered out at us. Jack smiled and waved at the woman. We forgot our key. You need a knife? The woman asked. The kids above me used a knife to get in. We have a knife, Jack said, looking at me. I handed over my Swiss Army knife. Then, trying to muster confidence, I smiled at the woman, but the smile felt forced and goofy. A baby cried in the background. The woman closed the window and disappeared. You see? Act like you belong and no one questions you, Jack said. Hold the ladder, please. Tyler, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, shuffled in place. He shoved his hands into his pockets. You know, I don't think this is trespassing. I think this is breaking and entering. If we get caught, this could really hurt my chances of getting into college. Whoa! I almost passed out. The voice of reason had wormed its way into my brother. Yes, I said, nodding my head like a bobble-headed doll. Exactly. Breaking and entering will look really, really bad on your high school transcript. It will look bad on all our transcripts, so let's not do this. What? The word shot out of Jax's mouth. You're gonna back out now? But we're so close. How can you guys abandon a quest? Tyler ran a hand over his tangled hair. I'm hoping to get into Massachusetts Institute of Technology. If I get arrested, I won't even be able to get into Massachusetts Institute of Taxidermy. He stepped away from the ladder. I figured Tyler could get arrested for making meth in our basement, and because of his grades, he'd still get into the best college in the U.S. But I wasn't going to say that. Jack sighed. Fine, whatever, I'll do it all alone. She opened the Swiss Army knife to its dull, flat blade. Then she began to climb the ladder. It rocked side to side, so Tyler and I grabbed it and held it steady. We shared a look of powerlessness as she climbed in. She's bossy, Tyler said. You have no idea, I grumbled. The bike riders rode past again. I imagined them telling their parents about the bad kids who were breaking into the motel, then their parents calling the police. But they had a bag of cookies, and after propping their bikes against the warehouse wall, sat together and ate, watching us with curiosity. My nose tingled. Holding the ladder with one hand, I pulled a tissue from my pocket with the other and held it to my nostrils. Things were getting out of hand. Caution Boy needed to speak up. Jax? I called. She'd reached the second floor. Pressing her face against the window, she peered through the crack in the curtains. I can't see much. Tyler, distracted by the cookie bag, let go of the ladder. Hey, he called to those kids. Are those Nilla wafers? I love those things. I let the tissue float to the ground and grabbed the ladder with both hands. Luckily, the tingle had been a false alarm. Jax, I called again. The room looks empty, she announced. Then she shimmied the blade under the window and pushed it open. Leaning over the sill, she kept talking, but I couldn't hear her anymore. And then she fell in. Or had she been pulled in? Jax? Tyler didn't even notice. He was paying the kids for a box of wafers. A moment passed. Crud! The ladder wobbled, but I didn't care. I scrambled